Coming up on the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast.
I think, in certain cases, high cholesterol is a problem. And I think it's probably a problem for the vast amount of people that eat a standard junk food diet. I mean, again, I think it is a conditionally dependent variable, to the sense that if you have high cholesterol in the setting of vascular inflammation, hypertension, hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, then, and particularly maybe the cholesterol is oxidized or glycated, then you're probably at increased risk for cardiovascular disease. And in fact, there's just massive amounts of literature that would support that. However, if you don't have any of those things going on, and say you're very low inflammation, you have no visceral fat or very little visceral fat, your blood pressure is normal, your triglycerides are low, your HDL is high, we don't have a lot of evidence that would support that higher cholesterol in that situation is necessarily a bad thing.
Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I'm Brian Grin, and I'm here to give you actionable tips to get your body back to what it once was 5, 10, even 15 years ago. Each week, I'll give you an in-depth interview with a health expert from around the world to cut through the fluff and get you long-term sustainable results. This week, I interviewed Dr. Shawn Baker. He's an orthopedic surgeon, world record holder, author of The Carnivore Diet, and CEO of MeatRx.com. We discuss his own health journey, how he prepares meat, and how much protein is ideal to build muscle. We also touch on his eating, fasting, workout routine, what really causes gout, should we worry about cholesterol, protein and mTOR stimulation, and his one tip to get your body back to what it once was. So I really enjoyed my interview with Dr. Shawn. I know you will too. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the interview. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Grin, and I have Dr. Shawn Baker on. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I wanted to touch on a bunch of different things. First, before I get into that, perhaps for the people that don't know, maybe give them a little background of your history and how you got into, carnivore and everything else.
Yeah, so I'm a 54-year-old lifelong athlete. I'm an orthopedic surgeon by training. Been sort of looking at nutrition now for, pretty significantly for about a decade. Through my own health issues, I suppose, as I got into my 40s, noted that despite training extremely hard, being a competitive athlete and still putting in the work, my health was starting to sort of go in a direction I didn't want it to go. And so I started, really investigating nutrition pretty significantly, and as a physician, you don't really get much in the way of nutrition knowledge. You get trained pretty good at doing procedures and prescribing drugs and whatnot, but as a physician, it's not part of your normal repertoire of things you have for most of us. And so, I went on my own journey and started out with this low fat, sort of high vegetable, a little bit of lean chicken diet for a while, which is what many people would recommend. And I was able to lose weight and get leaner doing that, but it was just clearly not sustainable. It's something I didn't enjoy. I was not, was sort of, irritable because I wasn't eating enough and that type of stuff. And so, that led me through kind of a journey of different dietary sort of attempts. And, I went to a paleo diet and then a low carb diet, a ketogenic diet, and finally, back about just not quite 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, I ended up on this fully meat-based diet and kind of more or less been doing that ever since. I did a 30-day trial, felt really, really good. Went back to a kind of a more mixed omnivorous diet for a day, and immediately I started to feel bad. Back started aching, aches and pains. Sleep wasn't as good, so I went back to the meat-based one, and I've basically been on that more or less ever since. And so that's kind of the overview.
Yeah. So you did your own exploration. What kind of health issues did you have that brought you on this journey?
I was, I was 285 pounds, probably, even though I just won a world championship in Highland Games, I was, very strong, but I wasn't as lean as I needed to be. I was developing sleep apnea, hypertension, probably had metabolic syndrome, prediabetes. That wasn't officially confirmed at the time. Numerous aches and pains. As an athlete, I'd been I competed as an athlete my whole life. I'd won several world championships and set world records in a number of different sports. And, once it sort of takes its toll on your body with aches and pains. And so those are things I was dealing with, when I first started looking at diet.
Yeah, and was there someone that influenced you to look into carnivore and going meat based?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole community of people that was online called the Zeroing In on Health Facebook community, and I don't know exactly how I ended up seeing them. I can't remember the exact inroad, but I ended up sort of vicariously watching and seeing what was going on for about a year before I decided to, take the plunge, so to speak, and do that. And so there's a whole group of these, folks, a girl named Kelly Hogan, Charles Washington, Amber O'Hearn, among others, that showed Joe and Charlene Anderson. They've been doing it for a decade. Some of them have been doing it for 20 years successfully without apparently any evidence of any sort of problems. And so I thought that was intriguing enough just to give it a try. And so that's where I got started in that.
And I know you say carnivore diet, that could maybe mean a bunch of different things. What is like a typical carnivore diet? I know there's carnivore-ish and things like that, but what would you say is top of the line on the food list there?
Well, meat, and particularly red meat, that tends to be the major staple for, I'd say, the vast majority of people. And then, some people to that, they'll add, different types of meat, whether it's pork or chicken, or I'll add seafood in there. Many people will use eggs. Dairy is one of those things where some people do okay with it, some don't. Some people will include some spices. Some people are, just salt or even no spices. And then, there's some people that, like you said, carnivore-ish, where they'll throw some, piece of avocado or a little bit of fruit in there from time to time. I think all that's fine, quite honestly. I don't really get too much into the dogmatic part. My thought around this is, let's do it, get you healthy. And that's been the focus. It's not reverse veganism. It's not, not some ideology. It's like, hey, what do you got to do to get healthy? And if it means eating nothing but red meat, that's fine. If it means you can eat red meat plus some fruit and a little bit of vegetables and bowl ice cream here and again, that's also fine. I mean, I think there's no reason to sort of, say there's only one way, because there's not. And I've seen that over and over again.
Yeah, because there's all these different camps on and I agree. I don't think you need to be on one camp per se. I used to have a decent amount of plants and more of like a pescatarian, I would say. And I've shifted actually during the whole quarantine. I'm pretty active and lift a lot and got more into red meat and, buying it from sustainable places and grass-fed, grass-finished, good quality meat. What would you say a typical day for you, like as far as eating? And then I'm big into fasting as well. What's your fast? Do you have any type of like meal timing as well?
Well, I mean, I can tell you what I'm doing right now currently, and this has changed over the years. So, like I said, I've been doing this for years now. So currently right now, I eat 2 meals a day. An early morning meal, like I just had one. So it's 8 o'clock. I just ate just under 3 pounds of ribeye steak for breakfast.
Nice.
I'll probably have another pound and a half sometime around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and that'll be it for the day. So I'll come in around 4.5 pounds of meat, and that's it. And so then it'll be about an 18-hour period before my next, before breakfast the next day. So that's what's been working well for me. I'm playing with some things, looking at blood glucose numbers, and like I woke up this morning, my blood glucose was 58 fasting blood glucose, which is, very low, but I feel great with that. So it's not, hypoglycemic by definition, because I'm not symptomatic. There's some people that would argue that point, but I'm pretty confident in the fact that it's fine for my particular situation. And so yeah, that's what I'm doing now. So that's kind of keeps me at baseline. That's kind of a weight maintenance. I sit there at, I'm a big guy. I'm about 246 to 250 pounds, depending on the day, depending on the time of day. I guess I weighed in the morning lighter. In the end of the day, I've gained a couple pounds from the food, but
yeah,
that's a pretty pretty decent spot right now.
So 2 meals a day, and so you do more of like an early time restricted eating, where you'll have something around 8, and then we're
8 and noon. Something's pretty
8 and noon. Yeah. Yeah, which is, you don't see that too often, right? Like a lot of times you'll see like noon and the other way around, noon and 8 or noon and 6. what got you into doing it earlier? And because I've always switch around and try to find what works best. When do you fit your workout in too?
So, again, so I will say that so I'll define two things. One is I do activity. So I'm, like you say, I'm standing right now. I generally don't even sit down at all during the daytime. I'm up all day long. I do all my computer work, interviews while I'm standing. I do about, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours of walking. I do a lot of work while I'm walking, whether it's walking around the neighborhood with the dogs or walking on a treadmill. I don't really consider that exercise though. That's just activity. My exercise, when I'm lifting heavy weights or sprinting or stuff like that, that's going to happen after that second meal typically. So, just around lunchtime, I usually go in there and crank out for half hour to 45 minutes of, pretty intense stuff. And that is working for me. Like I said, I've played around, and the metric I'm looking at is blood glucose and seeing what provides the best, morning fasting blood glucose, which I think, that's a metric. It may not be the best metric, but a lot of people think there's some utility in that. So that's what I've been tailoring that based on. And so that's been giving me some pretty good, I think the average fasting glucose for this week has been 64. That's been my average for the 7-day period, which many people would say is, certainly low.
Yeah. Yeah, I used the CGM for a while, and I liked it. And I occasionally I'll check my fasting blood glucose as well. What about preparing the meat? Because this is something that I've run into. I tend to grill a decent amount, but try not to just because I don't want to overdo it with grilling. What is your opinion around preparing the meat?
Well, I think you should enjoy it. I think that's the first, don't cook something that you're not going to like. Nothing's going to be sustainable. So I do, I've got a number of different ways, like for instance, this morning, what I'll typically do is I'll get up, I'll throw a couple steaks in the sous vide device. I've got a couple different ways to sous vide steaks. If they're frozen and in vacuum pack, I'll throw them in a water bath. If they're not, there's a little special grill I have that you can just basically sous vide within a grill, and I'll do that. And then when I get back from my walk, I'll sear it, just sear it either in a pan, or I've got a really hot grill or hot grill that I'll do that. And so that's generally how I do it, and it works pretty well. And like I said, you just, there's a little bit of, you gotta be thoughtful enough to, put it in the sous vide. But it's just automatic for me. It just takes, 5 seconds or 10, about a minute. And then you take the dogs for their nice 30, 45-minute walk, you come back and it's ready to go. So that works pretty well for me.
Yeah. Have you ever tried an air fryer?
I do. Yeah, I have an air fryer.
Okay.
I think it's convenient. It's clean. As far as not making a mess, it's, it's a good way to not mess up the kitchen. I don't think it does a very good job at searing. That's the only problem with the air fryers. They taste pretty good. It's, in a pinch, I'll use that. Like I said, I've got just about every steak cooking device you can imagine
Right,
at this point. In fact, I've got a big dry aging device, so I'm looking forward to that. I think I've got about 12 days left on this big ribeye subprimal. It's going to be ready to come out. It'll be the first one. I did a tenderloin the other day, which was, a lot quicker because they're smaller, but
right.
So anyway, that's another thing that, just got.
What about organ meats? Is that something that you've gotten into?
I don't eat them. I don't particularly enjoy them. I've tried them many, many times. I've had, high-end grass-finished organ meats cooked by, professional chefs in many different ways. I just don't find them very appealing. I've tried liver and kidney and brains and testicles and thymus and pancreas. I've done it all. And I just don't find it particularly palatable to me, and
Yeah.
they're, in my view, they're not required. I've been doing this stuff for years. I've surveyed, I did a survey on 10,000 people, 12,000 people actually looking at this. And I asked them about organ meat consumption. Only about 15% actually ate it on a regular basis. And the outcomes, on regular basis was more than once a week or more. Everybody else either ate it very infrequently or never. And the differences in outcomes were no different at all. And interestingly, Harvard University is about to publish a study on this, with 2,000 people, and same results. Because I asked, I made sure they asked that question because I want to know, because there's a controversy. And my experience, and personally, and the experience that I've seen within the community, is they don't really make a difference in general. There's some people that certainly say they feel better with it, and that's fine. And I think you should experiment and see what works. But I don't think the recommendation that everybody needs it is valid based on actual results that we're seeing.
Okay. Yeah, I have not done a ton with it. I did have heart the other day.
That's
My wife,
fine. I mean, some people like heart, but it's like I said, if you like it, eat it. If you don't like it, you probably don't need to eat it.
yeah. And what about, this is a question that I get quite a bit. How much protein would you say? I probably obviously depends on the individual and perhaps their activity level and things like that. But what is a metric that you shoot for?
Well, I mean, I'm eating plenty of protein. I mean, I'm 400 grams a day or something like that for me. If I eat 4 pounds of meat, that's pretty close to that. I think for the average person, and again, I'm training pretty intensely, and one of the goals is maintain as much muscle mass as I can realistically do. I think guys like Don Layman, Stu Phillips, whose recommendations are pretty decent. I think they'd say 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram is probably, for most people, pretty good. Some people, they might go up to 2.2 as far as to build muscle, and that's, beyond that, you may not be providing any more muscle building advantage. It doesn't mean that eating more protein than that is necessarily bad for you, but you kind of tap out your muscle protein synthesis capability at about a gram per pound. That's what 2.2 per kilo is. So that I think that's a pretty reasonable start for people that are interested in muscle building. And there's some people that'll do better with a little bit lower depending on what they're dealing with. But I think protein is the RDA for protein is generally too low.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that. And what about regarding, I've gotten this question, gout and overconsumption of meat. And I know that's just sort of like a theory. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, well, certainly meat can precipitate a gout flare-up. But you have to realize that gout is dependent upon a number of different things. And it's, generally what we see is people that have some sort of metabolic disease often are at risk for gout. And so what we're seeing is this chronic underlying inflammation. We're seeing probably some immune aspects that go along with gout. We see that, hyperinsulinemia or dysglycemia all predispose people for gout. And so when you throw purines into that mix, purines are then metabolized into uric acid. And so high levels of uric acid can, in the right situation, precipitate a gout attack. Now, there are many people that have high levels of uric acid even on a carnivore diet that don't have gout. And so it's part of the equation. Fructose and alcohol are also things that certainly probably even more readily lead to gout attacks. So what I would say is, if you are predisposed to gout and you already have gout, going on a meat-based diet may initially, if you're still metabolically sick, lead to a gout flare-up, and you have to take your medications and get past it. But as your metabolic health improves, as you become less hyperglycemic, as your inflammation goes down, generally the gout resolves. And so it's kind of one of those things that's kind of, in the beginning sometimes, but long-term, most people see gout resolve and go away.
Right. Yeah. And usually gout, for the most part, is caused by, like you said, it could be fructose, alcohol, even processed carbs.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Those are all things. Like I said, you just got to think of gout as not just uric acid. It's a whole host of things going on that cause those uric acid crystals to precipitate.
And what about people who worry about cholesterol? I know this is something that's been debunked many times, but cholesterol and red meat and that whole.
Well, I mean, I don't think you should not necessarily consider cholesterol. I think, in certain cases, high cholesterol is a problem. And I think, and I think it's probably a problem for the vast amount of people that eat a standard junk food diet. I mean, again, I think it is a conditionally dependent variable, to the sense that if you have high cholesterol in the setting of vascular inflammation, hypertension, hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, then, and particularly maybe the cholesterol is oxidized or glycated, then you're probably at increased risk for cardiovascular disease. And in fact, there's just massive amounts of literature that would support that. However, if you don't have any of those things going on, and say you're very low inflammation, you have no visceral fat or very little visceral fat, your blood pressure is normal, your triglycerides are low, your HDL is high, we don't have a lot of evidence that would support that higher cholesterol in that situation is necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't mean that it might not be, but we just don't have evidence to say, cholesterol is bad in this situation. And I suspect it's not. And we're seeing more and more evidence to support that. But so what I say, if you have high cholesterol and you go on a carnivore diet, and some people do, some people don't, some people do, I would say it behooves you to find out that other information. It's important to probably look at the actual vessels themselves to see, it's more important to know what's going on with the vessels than looking at this one particular risk factor.
Right. Do you do blood work like every 6 months, or do you keep, are there certain metrics that you like to keep an eye on just to?
Honestly, I think that blood work has its utility, but it has to be taken in context. And so I think one of the things we have to realize is, what you're trying to figure out when you do blood work. And a lot of people don't understand how to interpret that. And, it's certain, like my blood glucose is 58 this morning. If you talk to an average physician, they say, oh my God, get you some sugar right away. Mm-hmm. But in context, I'm sitting here fine, having a conversation. I exercise, I walk my dogs. I'm completely fine with that. So we have to put the blood work in context into what is going on. But I think more importantly, measuring actual disease is more important. So what is disease to me? Well, if you're obese, you're diseased. That's clear. If you have a lot of visceral fat, you're diseased. If you cannot perform athletically and you've got, limitations and pain, and that's indicative of disease in my view. So those metrics are actually what affect me day to day and what I really care about. Now, I've done a coronary artery calcium scan to look at my heart vessels. Zero, no evidence of plaque whatsoever was seen in there after many years of eating all meat and a ketogenic diet prior to that. So, those things are, my blood pressure is always low. It's 115 over 70 typically. I wake up with an erection every morning, which is a 54-year-old guy. That's a good measure of cardiovascular health.
You're like 15 years old.
Well, seriously, that's important. I know it's kind of, people like to laugh about it. That is an indicator of your vascular health. And so, occasionally I'll get some labs. Last time I checked, my kidney function was perfect. My liver function was perfect. Cholesterol was a little bit high. Again, I put that in the caveat. My inflammatory markers were essentially close to zero. So, I'm pretty pleased with where I'm at health-wise.
Yeah. And so at this point, you don't have any carbs, right? They don't play any role.
Yeah, right now, no. Like I said, and this is, I think, a pretty important sort of caveat to this. I don't necessarily think carbohydrate per se is bad for us. I don't think glucose per se is bad for us. If it was, our liver wouldn't make it. Our liver makes glucose. I don't eat any, but my liver makes it. I still have glucose. And as low as my glucose is, it never goes to zero. And when I'm exercising really hard, it's going to go up a little bit because my liver says, hey, your muscles are using more glucose. We're going to make more. And the liver has the capacity to kind of increase your liver output by about 1,500%, while you're exercising intensely. Right. I think that, and so if I eat dairy, I'm going to get some carbohydrates. If I eat some eggs, there's going to be a small amount of carbohydrates. Meat generally doesn't have carbohydrates. Maybe liver might have a little bit, but so I'm not really concerned about that. Right. Now, there are foods that contain carbohydrates, mostly plant foods, that also have compounds that are maybe irritating to people. Some people don't do well with lectin. Some people don't do well with oxalates. Some people don't do well with goitrogens and so on and so forth. And so I think those are the problems for many people. And we most people, they don't acutely bother them, but I think in the chronic setting over time, we see maybe this insidious development of chronic disease, and maybe, due to some sort of these vegetables that we think are healthy. And maybe for some people, certain vegetables just don't do it. And we don't want to recognize that or believe that that's a possibility, but I see it every single day over and over again. People, eating a clean diet of meat and a little bit of vegetables, and they do better when they cut the vegetables out. So, why is that? I can't explain any other reason other than they're perhaps irritating for certain people with certain conditions.
And where do you get most of your meat from? Do you get it from one place, or?
I get it. I've become kind of this meat guy, right? So I'm in social media. So I get a lot of just ranchers to send me stuff. So I get probably 70% of my stuff I get from different ranchers that want me to try their meat, and I'm happy to promote these guys and say, hey man, buy from the local ranchers. So right, that's where most of it. Sometimes I'll get it from the store. It just depends. But yeah, I got I've got meat from all over the U.S. and sometimes Canada, and sometimes it's from overseas. But yeah.
Okay. And what about mTOR? Uh, I was just listening to Dave Asprey speak a little bit about, you know, I mean, he talked about meat and how maybe overstimulation of mTOR for individuals. What would you say regarding that?
Yeah, so I think that's a nuanced topic, and so if you listen to guys like Keith Barr, who is a researcher, does this stuff, and some of the other folks, the protein research I've talked to, protein can stimulate mTOR. We know that. Exercise stimulates mTOR, by the way. Calories stimulate mTOR. Insulin stimulates mTOR, probably, and in fact, calories and insulin probably have the biggest impact on mTOR. So if you want to not stimulate mTOR, don't eat a bunch of calories and don't eat a bunch of insulinogenic foods, i.e. carbohydrates. mTOR is differentially expressed in different tissues. So, stimulation of mTOR in the liver is different than stimulation of mTOR in the muscle and the brain and the fat tissue. And so it's kind of context dependent. So if you are eating protein, and that's a concern with meat, is it's protein, particularly leucine, you should be doing some exercise. I mean, the idea, we want mTOR to stimulate to grow muscle. I mean, that's a good thing. No one would argue with that.
Right.
And you can't do it without mTOR. If you give animals rapamycin, for instance, which inhibits, mTOR, they become cachexic and sarcopenic. So you can't blanket stop stimulating mTOR. So it's a differential thing. So it's more nuanced than that. And so if you were just going to pound the protein and just sit on your butt all day, yeah, I mean, that's probably a problem. But again, that's the same thing with eating too many calories. If you get fat, I would just say, don't get fat. Stay lean, stay muscular, and you're good. And so, I mean, if eating a bunch of steaks makes you fat, then you're doing the wrong thing. But that's unlikely to happen. But if you're sitting around eating donuts and ice cream all day and getting fat, you got a problem. You're still stimulating mTOR, and you're probably going to get, cancer and die young and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that it's good to have a balance. Like if you're doing some fasting like you do, you have periods of time where you're catabolic per se, and then you work out and then have your steak or whatever, and then you want growth then. So at that point, if you're active and lifting, and especially like I would say resistance training, then it's a perfect time to stimulate mTOR.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing. I mean, it's just like, all of these things. Glucose is not inherently bad. Insulin is not inherently bad. mTOR is not inherently bad. But, if it's stimulated in the way or in
chronically,
unusual concentrations, then it can be bad. But it's not this all or none. There's a sort of a level that's helpful.
Yeah. And you're creating a whole community of carnivore success stories, I see. Maybe touch on Meat RX. I was checking it out, and you have a whole community of not only individuals doing it, but also coaches.
Yeah, we have. We came up. Well, I started collecting success stories a few years back because I thought it was really cool, and I think it inspires people. And we've got literally hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds of success stories categorized by every single condition you can think of generally within there. So we have success stories, on video, written down. We have a whole community. We have like 40 meetings a week of different times. People get together and they support each other. I'm on there every single day. In fact, after this, I'll be going directly in my MeatRx community meeting for the day. And then we have a whole host of coaches that help people to support them, because as easy as this diet is, to tell people, hey, just eat a bunch of steak and don't worry about it. People still have questions. They have struggle with motivation. A lot of them have carb addiction issues. A lot of them have specific, what if I don't have a gallbladder? How much do I eat? How much fat do I eat? It's on and on and on. And, so we just kind of support those folks. And then the interesting thing is that as we progress, we've been doing this for about a year now. We have about 5,000 members and, like I said, about 120 coaches and growing every day. We're trying to figure out what's unique about people as far as, okay, you've gotten off all the stuff with a meat-based diet, you're kind of on a strict diet. Now, what can you put back into your diet and still stay healthy? And that's the thing that we're going to be pursuing, in the very near future and figuring how to do that. And we've got some really cool stuff coming up with that. So.
Yeah, no, it's always good to have a community whenever you're doing anything, whether it's working out, fasting, or eating meat, right? If you can see other people's success stories. Um, what what about I was just going to say, what about the coaches? So you have so these coaches pretty much do they get assigned individuals pretty much and then help them and help guide them and into it?
Yeah. So, I mean, all the coaches, I put together a course, it's something like 20 videos they watch, and there's quizzes on each of the videos. And they take a, pretty lengthy, in-depth test that they have to pass. And then they have to do a mock interview before we certify them. They all have to have 6 months of experience with the diet before they're allowed to apply as a coach. And so, and then what we do is, our website helps, kind of helps promote them, and we kind of help schedule and do all the stuff to kind of make it easy for them. And so people just kind of can sign up with a coach and they can continue on with them. And then we also just started to develop, and so they can schedule like a half-hour session with a coach. We also started this instant coaching thing where you can just, if you have a question right now, there's always a coach standing by, like an Uber driver. You just kind of hit your button, connects you immediately with a coach, and they can kind of give you direct feedback right then and there. So that's how the coaching's working right now.
Oh, that's nice. And I also noticed you have a GoFundMe. You have a carnivore clinical trial that you're raising money for. What perhaps tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we are, in the midst of raising quite a bit of money to do a large intervention trial. We've currently got just around $250,000 in funding that we've raised so far. We're trying to get that probably closer to the $750,000 to $1 million range, which I think we'll do in the near future. Hopefully, we'll get some independent funding in addition to the GoFund stuff. We're going to get any way we can, and so we want to do a large scale intervention trial to further just solidify what we're doing. Like I said, I mentioned I'm aware of 3 studies that are already ongoing, waiting for publication that'll come out this year. But this will be the largest sort of scale intervention trial that'll be done. I won't directly be doing the research. I'm not a researcher, but just kind of helping set up what we want to look at in the direction we want to go, and then we'll hand that over to professional researchers to actually do the study. But that's the goal for hopefully the fairly near future.
Yeah, that's great. And I just glanced over one question was, what's your opinion regarding fiber? Because this is, you see this, I see a lot of mixed messages regarding fiber. What are your thoughts regarding that?
Yeah, I think, again, this is a conditionally beneficial substance. I think, for the average person eating a kind of a junk food diet, fiber can be beneficial. I don't think I clearly know it's not essential. I mean, I've literally not eaten fiber in almost 5 years, and I'm, completely fine. Completely normal bowel habits, no problems at all. I mean, I've seen that over and over and over again. So it's not essential. I think, the benefits of fiber that have been talked about are that, it tends to sort of mitigate blood sugar spikes. So if you eat fiber with a high glycemic load food, you're going to see less of a blood sugar excursion. So that's clearly okay, but that's not an issue for me because I'm not eating the glycemic foods. Right. Fiber has, not really much of it. Some of the studies that looked at blood pressure doesn't really make a significant difference. It might lower your blood pressure 2 points. It's insignificant. It may lower your cholesterol. Now the question is that even helpful or not? And again, I think that's conditional in the people you're looking at. Fiber can have a role of satiety. You fill yourself up with a bunch of fiber, and you're kind of full from mechanoreceptors. The problem is for many people that leads to discomfort, bloating, pain. So there's some downsides to it. I mean, some people talk about the fact that fiber causes the gut microbiome to produce these things called short chain fatty acids. And particularly they talk about butyrate as being helpful for the colonic mucosa. And that's, that's likely true. I don't discount that. However, there's a lot of ways to get healthy gut without having to butyrate from fiber. One, you can eat it directly. You can eat things like butter and you get butyrate directly. Beta hydroxybutyrate, which is the principal ketone body in the blood, easily converts to butyrate, or it could be that the butyrate is converting to beta hydroxybutyrate, and that's the beneficial effect. And so we see people that are on low carb diets, ketogenic diets, carnivore diets, having circulating ketones. which will likely also protect the colonocytes. We also know that protein can be converted to short chain fatty acids. So you get things like propionate, acetate, methylbutyrate, so on and so forth. So there's likely evidence that those things probably also help that gut mucosa. So, and there's evidence out there that shows that fiber can potentially be problematic. There's a study that Ann Perry did in the Journal of Gastroenterology a few years back looking at colonoscopies, 2,000 people eating, and she stratified them by fiber quartiles. So people that ate the most fiber and versus the people that ate the least fiber. And the people that ate the most fiber had the highest incidence of colonic disease, particularly diverticulosis. And those that had little or no fiber had no evidence of disease. So there's some studies out there that show that maybe fiber is not as beneficial as we think it is. And again, I think it's very conditional. If you're going to eat a standard American diet with lots of sugary stuff and glycemic stuff, then probably the fiber is going to have a benefit to you. If you're eating a carnivore diet, probably no benefit and perhaps detrimental.
Yeah, so it's all context related. Depends. If you're metabolically healthy, you can definitely probably get away with a lot more than if you're not. And then I know you touched on it briefly because I'm not a big fruit eater. I know some people are. Consumption of fruit and which fruits would you say, like the berries, best off as opposed to like melons and things like that regarding, glycemic index and things like that?
Well, there's clearly, that's, you can just look that up. There's certainly, the glycemic index, or probably more importantly, glycemic load, are things that would favor things like berries. If that's your issue, if you're diabetic, pre-diabetic, or have diabetic pathophysiology, then, or hyperinsulinemia, then those things may be problematic for you. I don't necessarily think that fruit is bad for everybody or even most people, but there are people where they need to avoid it. I don't consume fruit. Like I said, I'm kind of these crazy guys that just eat basically meat. But
do you have a cheat food?
Yeah, it's kind of like dairy or eggs would be my cheat food.
Okay,
it's kind of funny. It's well, honestly, I cheat every day. My meals are my ribeye steaks are a cheat meal. Every day is a cheat meal for me.
Right. Yeah, you're having a 5-star meal for right in the morning, right when you get up, or not right when you get up, probably.
Yeah,
but.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of morning, I'm a big morning ritual guy. What kind of things do you do in the morning to start your day? I know you mentioned,
Yeah, well, I usually get up around before the sun comes up. I wake up spontaneously. I haven't used an alarm clock in years, and so
yeah.
my eyes kind of pop open somewhere between 5 and 6 a.m. I get up. I got 2 dogs, so they go for a walk with me. And usually, like I said, I'm throwing some steaks in the sous vide, and 30, 45 minutes, sometimes an hour long walk, depending on what the weather's like and how the dogs look like they need to do. And then I will. Usually then I'll eat, and then I usually directly after meals, I also try to do a little bit of activity. I think that that's a nice way to blunt that insulin and glucose responses.
Right.
To
go for a walk again.
Go for another walk, and then I've got then I've usually got some sort of meeting I've got to do, like these interviews and stuff like that, and then I'll have another meal, and then I'll exercise, and I'll work the rest of the day. But like I said, I've really found that trying to avoid being sedentary is extremely important. So I literally won't sit down till 6 or 7 p.m. is when I finally, for the first time, I'll sit down during the day. I might sit down and just relax for a little bit. But most of the time I'm up.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I do not like to sit. I'm actually kneeling right now.
Wow, ouch.
I got a good pad here. It's good.
Okay.
And I move around. But yeah, I'm the same way. I don't like to sit, so I'll either stand or kneel. And I have 2 dogs like you, so I get up, and it really is a great way to start the day, whether you have dogs or not. But just to get moving right off the bat, I always teach people. And after meals, I try to sort of time my walks after a meal, because like you said, it's a good way to blunt blood sugar and just get going, help with digestion as well.
Yeah, if you look at you go to Europe and you see the people, they always go for a stroll after meals. It's just a tradition. I think it's something that's helpful. And unfortunately, I live in a warm climate where I can kind of walk year round.
Where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Southern California.
Okay. Is it you guys getting a cold front there, huh? Is it?
Cold front means 50 degrees. So it's not really, That's not really too bad. It was actually 90 here a couple of weeks ago in January, which I thought was pretty impressive. But I'm actually going to be, I likely will be leaving and moving to a colder place in the summer. So we'll see if I'm sure I'll keep it up. I don't mind. I used to live in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which was extremely cold and windy. So
do you do any cold plunging or?
I have, yeah, I've done that. I haven't done as much recently, but I did a lot of cold showers. I used to do ice baths. I found it to be beneficial, quite honestly. I mean, it was kind of interesting. I would get with the ice baths, especially. I would do as much as a 30-minute ice bath, which is quite a long time. And I got out and just completely euphoric. I mean, you're shivering, but you're just laughing because it's got this mood enhancing, quality to it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I've gotten into cold plunging. I don't know if you know Brad Kearns. He's sort of.
Yeah. Brad's been over to my house.
Oh,
yeah.
I know. Yeah. He's great. He's helped me out. And I've gotten into it. I love it. I don't go for 30 minutes. I'm in there for 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes, but just for recovery,
Yeah, I think, and I think the one thing that, some of the research is suggesting that, you should distance that away from, strength training activities or muscle building activities. And so I would do that, as its own special event. I wouldn't tie it to exercise. I would kind of do it. And then maybe I would exercise not even that day or do it later in the day or something like that. So it didn't interfere with some of the, inflammation that is actually beneficial when we exercise.
Right. Yeah. Normally, yeah. I don't like to do it around my work. If anything, I'll work out and then a few hours later, maybe I'll do a little plunge. Well, this is a question I ask all my guests. What's one tip you'd give like a middle-aged individual looking to get their body back to what it once was? I'm sure we've touched on stuff already, but what would be one tip you'd give that individual?
Wow, there's a lot of tips I can give that individual. I think that you've got to be able to find something you can do. I mean, that's and you got to be consistent about it. I mean, that's what's going to ultimately work. I mean, I know there's a friend of mine, Stan Efferding, says compliance is a science, and so you've got to find something you can do and can stick with. And if it's eating steaks every day, I mean, I find that pretty easy and pretty helpful. And then, throw the exercise on top of that. I think you've got to couple both diet and exercise and then sleep. All three of those things are, those are all sort of three critical linchpins in, having success.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, doing something for a little bit can be beneficial, but being consistent over a long period of time is really most important to get lifestyle, to get lifelong results. Well, that was great. So where's the best place to find you? Is it meatrx.com or I know you're big on Twitter.
Yeah. So mtrx.com, like I said, in fact, in 15 minutes, I'll be there and there'll be a group of 70 to 100 people and I just answer questions directly. We have a nice chat and we encourage each other and we talk about whatever people want to talk about. So that's where you can actually interact with me and directly if you want. I'm on social media. I mean, sometimes I piss a lot of people off. Right now I got an angry horde of women are mad at me because I said bloating is not normal and they're all upset and they think it's misogynistic that you'd say that bloating is not normal. So I gotta laugh.
You're in trouble.
Yeah. So I guess I pissed off some influencer. I called out for normalizing bloating. I said, that's not normal. So anyway, but Shawn Baker, 1967, SHAWNBAKER, 1967. That's my Instagram. Twitter is SBakerMD. And YouTube, I put up a YouTube video most days, just Shawn Baker, same thing.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put some links in for you in the show notes. So, well, Dr. Shawn, thanks so much for coming on.
Well, my pleasure. Hey, thanks for having me, Brian.
This is our second take and we got it. So
we got it. All right, man. Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangrin.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again and have a great day.